Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for African News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, stormy talks on who should head up a civilian government in Burkina Faso continue. The military chief currently in charge, Colonel Zida, says he won't necessarily stick to the 2-week handover deadline given by the African Union. Meanwhile, we hear from the widow of an assassinated former president on her thoughts on the uprising. Also, Libya faces chaos as its top court rejects the elected assembly. The Supreme Court's declaration will likely widen divisions in the troubled country. And South African writer Mike Nicol, he is a prolific author whose book Payback's become an international hit. We speak to him about the continent's literary scene and the next instalment in the trilogy. First up, Burkina Faso's military leaders lashed out at regional mediators. He said that sanctions threatened by the African Union, if a civilian handover isn't enacted within 2 weeks, is the least of his concerns.
The African Union said that in 3 days we need to find a solution, but that is between us and the African Union. What is important for us as Burkina Faso is to have a conscious agreement that in 1 year we will have elections without problems that will be accepted by everyone.
Well, Burkina Faso's army is under international pressure to hand over power ever since stepping in after President Blaise Compaoré's ousting last week. Talks between political parties and civil society have settled on November 2015 as a date for new elections. But stormy discussions have yet to deliver a civilian candidate to lead during the transition. Regional Group ECOWAS held an emergency meeting in Accra on Thursday, in part on the country's crisis. Well, one of the names on the lips of protesters who drove Compaoré from power was Thomas Sankara. The late, much-loved leader's wife hopes the uprising means a chance to revisit the circumstances of his death.
A year ago, this street in Montpellier was named after Thomas Sankara. His widow has lived in the southern French city for several years. Mariam fled Burkina Faso after Sankara's assassination by an armed group in the 1987 coup led by Blaise Compaoré. The former president has since fled to Ivory Coast. Mariam has welcomed his ousting.
Like everyone else, I want this transition to run smoothly. This is not a coup d'etat. The military may have taken over, but that doesn't mean it's a coup d'etat, because the people have won. It's the people who fought this battle. The military are now there to ensure their safety.
Thomas Sankara led Burkina Faso for 4 years before his death, becoming a revolutionary icon across Africa because of his push for social and economic change. He tried to distance himself from imperial forces and has been called by some the African Che Guevara. Sankara's former best friend Blaise Compaoré was implicated in his murder, but who exactly killed him remains a mystery.
Thomas said he wasn't going to have anything more to do with the revolution. He said that whatever problems we had would pass. He believed Blaise would follow suit, but it's a shame. He never really understood. He never really knew the true Blaise.
Mariam says she still can't forgive Compaoré's role in her husband's death.
I thought he was just looking for a way to explain to us what happened. But he still hasn't spoken to us. He still has a chance to. He should explain.
Mariam is hoping that whoever leads the country next will allow an investigation to be reopened into why her husband met such a violent end and who pulled the trigger.
In other news, a verdict by Libya's Supreme Court ruling the internationally recognized elected parliament unconstitutional is likely to fuel further chaos in the troubled nation. The decision's been rejected by the House, the Assembly, which is based in Tobruk. The country remains caught between two rival governments and a spiraling security crisis that split the nation between East and West. San Marji is in Tripoli. He tells us more.
The decision by the Supreme Court is that the the current body in charge of Libya, so the House of Representatives based in Tobruk, are illegitimate and that they are unconstitutional, and that basically that would mean that the power would go back to the previous parliament, the GNC, who are based in Tripoli. And at this point, nothing is clear. I mean, although the decision may change who legally is the legitimate body, it won't change much else. Libya is still being run by two opposing parliaments on either sides of its coast, and the battles between these two parliaments' forces continue in Benghazi in the east and Kikla in the west. People don't really know how to react. Some celebrated, others protested. What one man told me, I don't know whether to be happy or sad, I'm just worried, which is what most people on either side of this political and military war feel, that they're worried because it's very unclear where Libya is heading. The international community has been trying its best to not choose sides in this and let Libya find its own way, which some people are condemning, and because they feel the international community actually played a role in Libya reaching this chaotic state. The parliament here in Tripoli, so the General National Congress, saw the verdict as a victory, whereas the House of Representatives obviously felt that it was rigged and that the General National Congress's forces had pressured the court into pushing this verdict.
18 men arrested by soldiers in northeastern Nigeria have been found dead just hours after being taken into custody. Residents in the town of Potoskum say that all the bodies show signs of gunshot and knife wounds. The men had earlier been accused of being members of Islamist group Boko Haram. The Nigerian military denied killing them, but local leaders say they believe the men died because they were from the Kanuri ethnic group known to supply Boko Haram with many of its members. Well, finally, South African writer Mike Nicol is a prolific author whose book Payback's become an international hit. The French edition, La Dette, was well received as well. It's set in Cape Town and is about a former gun runner who's sucked back into an underworld he and his colleague thought they'd escaped. Well, the follow-up, Killer Country, is just out in France. Earlier I spoke to him and he told me more about the second instalment in the trilogy. Have a listen.
I wasn't intending to write a sequel. I wasn't intending to write a trilogy. But there's a character that appears in La Dette, Payback, called Shamina February, and I kind of fell in love with her. And right at the end of Payback, she walks off, and I thought I should follow. One should always follow a beautiful woman anyhow. So I did, and landed up in Killer Country. But that was unintended, and it was delightful that it happened. The other interesting thing about Killer Country was that I have a friend who's an artist, and she said to me, you should listen to all this music, you see, and she gives me all this country rock music. I started listening to it, and I thought, this is just so horrible. I mean, I thought it was really horrible. She said to me, no, go back and have another listen. So I went back and had another listen, and I realized all the lyrics were about people getting drunk on brandy and killing one another. And I thought, yeah, I understand this. This is the place where I live. So I thought, okay, I'll construct the novel around the music and put the music into it.
Yeah, because actually at the back of it, you have a soundtrack to the book, which I think is really, really interesting, because generally you don't see soundtracks on books.
Yeah, but the music became part of getting the character, of the characterization. So it became necessary to listen to the music. I mean, I wish I could have had a CD to go with the book, but these things are not possible. However, you can go on YouTube and listen to most of the music anyhow.
No, you're obviously a South African writer.
Yeah.
A lot of your books are based in Cape Town, which is your hometown. Do you see that as playing an important part of your identity as what kind of writer you are?
No, very much so, because Cape Town is a really beautiful city. It has this huge mountain in the middle. It's a city which is around a mountain, and then around the city is the sea. So it's a peninsula, and you step out of the garden, our garden, it's not a garden, it's the side of the mountain, and, you know, one encounters snakes and baboons and scorpions and porcupines and all kinds of other wildlife. And I look down to the beach. It's only a kilometre away. As I said, we're quite high up. I can watch whales. I can watch dolphins. You know, I mean, the whole sea life is right there. So it's an incredibly beautiful place, and I needed the contrast of the beauty with the rough stuff that happens there as well.
Mike Nicol there speaking to me about his love of his hometown, Cape Town, and his new book, Killer Country. Well, that's it from African News for now. Stay with us, more coming up.